line shot, confident.
Ed Cowan played 18 tests for Australia and retired from first-class cricket only weeks ago. He says the culture is rotten.
What we've seen is the middle guy really, get the guillotine overnight. And I think if Cricket Australia are serious and they conduct this culture and behaviour review, then they need to be looking at the coach and the high performance manager.
So you're suggesting perhaps that their positions are untenable?
Yeah, I have, and for the last couple of days, I think this rests on them as much as it does the players. And don't get me wrong, I'm not excusing the behaviour of the players, but I think there's more to come out in terms of the actual facts, and we'll get that. But if you're looking at the culture of the team, you need to be looking at the head.
There's the man cast as the villain, but one feels for him in some ways.
Now, the dilemma for Cricket Australia is that the value of their product is being undermined by the culture they oversee.
There is a booing and unsurprisingly some unhappy faces amongst that Australian side.
I think the people in the administration need to wake up and understand that they are as responsible for the culture in all of those different dimensions as they are for other elements like negotiating successful broadcast rights and the many other things that are demanded upon those who administrate.
Simon Longstaff has been called on by sports bodies such as the Australian Olympic Committee in times of crisis.
If there is someone, I don't mind how talented they are, how many games they might win, if they don't have the character, the ethical kind of commitment, then they shouldn't be there. Even if it has some cost in doing so, that they should be able to undergo a form of leadership formation and development that thickens their ethical skin so that no matter how much they might be provoked by circumstances, they retain their essential integrity and their moral compass.
The team's culture isn't one that is befitting of the Australian cricket team. We've seen people essentially get in scraps off the field. We've seen guys give send-offs. We've seen sledging. This aggressive nature of the team that we're seeing says so much about them. And then we've had this incident, and it's almost the straw that has broken the camel's back. To win back the public, to have a team that we love, we can't just suspend 3 players. It needs to be a complete overhaul so that the public can then reinstate their faith in this cricket team that they love so much. They want to love the Australian cricket team, and we need to give them reasons too.
Cricket author Mike Coward shares the same concerns for the game.
I don't think that the players understood the full extent of what they'd done and what has happened. And that is a dreadful indictment of the culture existing around the team and the lack of education within the team.
Yes, Steve could have said, no, that's not on in my team, but he's a young captain. He's one of the youngest captains we've had for a long time. He's naive, he's a fine batsman, but he's still finding his feet as a leader. I don't think he had the courage to stand up like he should have to the coach.
Whether he appreciated the gravity of the situation or not, it's still a horrendous error, and that's something he's going to have to come to grips with, come to terms with. Hopefully he's going to get the right support around him to help him through that process.
Former Australian coach John Buchanan has noticed the slide in team values.
I got to start my coaching career with Stephen Waugh and then continued it on with Ricky Ponting. One of the things that we started, and it continued through that period, and a little bit after that period, was the elevation of the baggy green. And gradually that was eroded, and I think the actions in South Africa are just a manifestation of some of those values and principles that sometimes are there and other times are not.
Is Steve Smith to blame for this failure in leadership?
Yes, unquestionably, as captain of the side. I mean, historically, it's very true that in cricket particularly, the captain takes responsibility. It's hard to believe that the coach Darren Lehman wasn't involved in some way. And if he wasn't, he should have been, because he should know what is going on.
There is a human cost, and it's huge. Make no mistake that what particularly Steve Smith's about to walk back into in Australia, in a sense I feel sorry for them. And then there are huge flow-on effects, the public trust, and I think that's why the culture of the team has to change. This is the moment.
But the implications are not just personal, with Cricket Australia in the middle of negotiating lucrative broadcast deals.
The longer that this story stays in the media cycle, the longer that commercial partners will begin to question whether or not they want to remain apart, in the short term at least, with Cricket Australia.
Michael Narain says this one on-field incident may cost Cricket Australia hundreds of millions of dollars.
The broadcasters will go back to them with their new tenders and say, sorry, your property is not worth what you thought it was, and they will use this incident as leverage. Cricket Australia is probably going to be losing somewhere close to around the $250 to $300 million mark.
Individually, Smith and Warner have both lost captaincies in the lucrative Indian Premier League, and sponsors are cutting them loose.
They allow themselves to become the face of the game, to be a role model for younger people, and the moment you put yourself into that situation, then the expectations justifiably rise.
Does Steve Smith have a future?
It may well be that he just wasn't strong enough to stand up if somebody else within the group made the fateful decision. I don't know. I can't see him ever leading again.
Yes, he does, but that'll, I think, totally be in his hands.
The Australian cricket team we want to see winning, but we also want to see it winning in the right way.